I volunteered for a sleep study. I didn't realize something was watching me sleep. Posted by you sleepless Daniel 21. I didn't volunteer for the sleep study because I was curious about dreams. I volunteered because I was broke, exhausted, and running out of options, and because at a certain point, fear starts to feel like a luxury you can't afford. I was 21 and already behind on rent. Not almost behind, actually behind. 3 warning emails from my landlord sat unread in my inbox because opening them made my chest hurt. Tuition was due in 6 weeks. My bank balance hovered just above zero, like it was afraid of falling any lower. I slept when my body gave out, not when I wanted to, on buses, on library floors between stacks, sitting upright on my bed with my shoes still on. My dreams, when they came, were shallow and jagged, half-formed things that dissolved the second I woke up, leaving behind only a feeling that something had been unfinished. By the time I saw the flyer, I was already so tired that bad ideas didn't feel bad anymore. It was taped to the corkboard outside the campus library, curling at the edges like it had been there too long. Someone had tried to tear it down at one point. One corner was ripped, the paper stretched thin and fibrous where it hadn't quite given way. Paid sleep study. $2,000. The number didn't register at first. I had to read it twice. Then a third time, slower. $2,000. The rest of the text felt secondary, like it was only there to justify the number. Participants needed for overnight observation. Minimal risk, confidential minimal risk, was underlined. Hard, pressed so deeply into the paper that it had left an indentation on the corkboard behind it. I stood there longer than I should have. People passed me. Someone brushed my shoulder. I barely noticed. My brain was already doing the math, rent, groceries, tuition, the exact number of hours of panic this would buy me. There was no university logo, no department name, no reassuring block of fine print, just a phone number. I told myself that if it were dangerous, they wouldn't be advertising it like this. I told myself that sleep studies were normal. Hospitals did them. Universities did them. I told myself a lot of things that sounded reasonable when stacked on top of desperation. I took a picture of the flyer. I didn't call right away. I waited an hour, long enough to pretend I was thinking it through. When I finally did, a woman answered on the second ring. Somnus Research Institute, she said. Her voice was calm, smooth, so neutral it felt hollow, like it had been drained of anything personal before reaching me. I had the sudden, irrational impression that she was reading from something, not a script exactly, but a version of herself that had been practiced. I told her about the flyer. Of course, she said. We're currently screening participants. The questions came quickly. Too quickly. Age, availability, whether I had any diagnosed sleep disorders. That was it. No questions about stress, or nightmares, or whether I ever woke up in the middle of the night, convinced someone was standing just out of view. I lied when I said no. She scheduled me for the following Monday, like the decision had already been made. You'll stay with us for 3 consecutive nights, she said. All meals provided. During sleep, you'll be monitored. Monitored how? I asked. The pause on the line was subtle, but it stretched just long enough for my skin to prickle. Non-invasive methods. She said finally, cameras, sensors, standard equipment. Something about the way she said standard bothered me, like it was a word she used often. I should have asked where the institute was affiliated. I should have asked why they weren't using the university's name. I should have asked why the screening process felt less like an evaluation and more like a formality. Instead, I asked for the address. It was 40 minutes outside the city, just off the highway. Industrial zone. No nearby landmarks. When I looked it up later, there was no street view, just a gray smear where the building should have been. Before hanging up, she added, "Please don't consume caffeine or alcohol 24 hours prior to arrival." Not avoid. Please don't. The wording sat wrong with me. like a polite warning instead of a guideline. By Sunday night, I was packing an overnight bag and telling myself that 3 nights of discomfort were nothing compared to the relief of having money again. I didn't realize yet that the study wasn't interested in how long I slept or how deeply. It was interested in what happened when I stopped being awake. The building didn't look like a research institute. That was the first thing that bothered me, though I didn't admit it to myself until later. It sat alone at the end of a cracked access road, surrounded by chain-link fencing that had long since rusted into a dull orange. No sign out front, no parking lot lights, just a low concrete structure that looked more like a repurposed office park than a place where science happened. The only indication that I was in the right place was a small metal plaque bolted beside the entrance. Somnus, the letters were thin and shallow, like they hadn't wanted carved too deeply into the metal. Inside, the air was cold and dry. It smelled like disinfectant layered over something stale, fabric that had absorbed too many nights, too many bodies lying still for too long. The lobby was empty except for a security desk and a woman seated behind it, typing slowly. Her fingers moved with practiced rhythm, but the screen in front of her looked dark from where I stood. She looked up the moment I stepped inside. "You must be Daniel," she said. I hadn't told her my name yet. She smiled when she saw my hesitation, like she'd expected it. She handed me a clipboard. The forms were already clipped in place. My name printed neatly at the top in block letters that didn't look handwritten. "Just consent paperwork," she said. "Bathroom's down the hall, if you need it. When you're finished, I'll take you to your room." The paperwork was dense but familiar. Legal language designed to exhaust you into agreement. Voluntary participation. Data collection. Confidentiality. One line stood out enough that I read it twice. Participant acknowledges that certain stimuli may be introduced during sleep cycles for observational purposes. I turned back to the woman. "What kind of stimuli?" I asked. She didn't look surprised by the question. "Nothing that can harm you," she said. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. That should have been the moment I walked out. Instead, I signed. The room looked wrong in a way that took me a minute to place. At first glance, it could have been a cheap hotel room. Neutral gray walls. Queen-size bed with crisp white sheets. A desk bolted to the floor. A lamp bolted to the nightstand. Then I noticed the ceiling. Tiny black domes that recessed into each corner, their glass surfaces catching the light just enough to reveal them if you knew where to look. Cameras, 4 of them, and directly above the bed, centered perfectly, was a 5th, larger, lower. Its lens pointed straight down at the pillow. "Bathroom's through there," the woman said, pointing to a door I hadn't noticed yet. "Dinner will be delivered at 6. Lights out at 10. "Lights out?" I asked. "It's important we maintain consistent sleep schedules," she said. "There's a call button by the bed if you need anything." She paused at the door. "And Daniel?" "Yes." "Please don't cover the cameras." Then she left. I stood there for a long moment, staring up at the lens above the bed, feeling a sudden, irrational urge to apologize. Dinner arrived on a rolling cart, sealed in plastic. Bland food, nutritionally complete in the way that made it taste like it had been designed by an algorithm. I ate on the edge of the bed, aware of every movement I made, of how I chewed, how long I paused between bites. The cameras didn't move, but I couldn't shake the feeling that attention was being adjusted somewhere else, zoomed, reframed. At 9:58, the lights dimmed on their own. At 10 o'clock, they shut off completely. No switch, no delay, just darkness. I lay on my back, staring at the faint outline of the camera above me. I told myself this was normal, that people slept under observation every night in hospitals and labs all over the world. Still, I didn't turn onto my side. It felt wrong to give them anything other than my face. I fell asleep faster than I expected. The first night passed without dreams. That alone unsettled me more than anything else. I usually dreamed vividly fragmented, anxious little stories that clung to me after waking. But when I opened my eyes that morning, there was nothing. No images, no fading emotions, just the sense that time had been removed from me, cleanly and completely. Breakfast was already there. The woman from the lobby returned later to check on me. She asked how I'd slept. Fine, I said. Did you get what you needed? She smiled. Oh, yes. The way she said it made my stomach tighten. The second night, the sound woke me. At first, I thought it was part of a dream, a soft shifting noise that didn't quite register as real. Like fabric brushing against fabric. Like someone adjusting their weight carefully. I lay still listening. The room was dark, but not empty. A faint red glow came from the call button by the bed, just enough light to outline the shape of the ceiling. The sound came again. Closer. My heart started to race. But I forced myself not to move, not to breathe any louder. I told myself it was the ventilation system adjusting, or the building settling, or anything other than what my body already believed. Then I felt it. Pressure. Not on me. On the bed. The mattress dipped slightly beside my leg, subtle but unmistakable, like someone had placed a hand there, testing the give. I stared at the ceiling, every muscle locked. The pressure lingered for a long second. Then it lifted. The sound moved away, slow and deliberate. I lay there for what felt like hours, afraid that if I moved, whatever had been there would realize I was awake. When I finally hit the call button, my finger was shaking so badly I missed it the first time. Yes? A voice said through the speaker, almost immediately. I think someone was in my room, I said. My voice sounded thin, unfamiliar. I felt something on the bed. There was a pause. Are you experiencing sleep paralysis? The voice asked. No, I said. I can move. Another pause. Longer this time. Some participants misinterpret hypnagogic sensations. The voice said calmly, You're safe. Please try to return to sleep. The line went dead. I didn't sleep again that night. In the morning, there were dark circles under my eyes that hadn't been there before. At breakfast, I found a small note placed neatly beside the tray. Excellent progress. No signature. I didn't finish eating. When the woman came for me later that day, she asked casually, like it was an afterthought, if I consider staying an additional night. There's a bonus, she said, an extra 1,000. I opened my mouth to say no. Instead, I heard myself say yes. That night, I didn't even pretend to relax. I lay awake, counting breaths, staring at the camera above me. I didn't close my eyes. I didn't shift. I waited. At some point, I realized the sound wasn't coming from a room. It was coming from above me, from inside the ceiling. Slow, heavy, intentional, like something repositioning itself. And this time, I knew, without any doubt at all, it wasn't trying to be quiet. I didn't report the sound in the ceiling. I don't know why. Part of me was afraid they'd explain it away again, reduce it to some clinical term that made me the problem. Another part, one I didn't want to acknowledge, was afraid they wouldn't deny it at all. Morning came without warning. No alarm. No gradual light. I simply opened my eyes and found the room already lit. Breakfast waiting on the desk like it had been there for hours. My body felt wrong. Not tired, used. My muscles ached in places that hadn't moved. My throat was dry, tongue thick in my mouth, like I'd been breathing through it all night. When I stood, my legs trembled, and I had to grip the edge of the desk until the dizziness passed. In the bathroom mirror, something about my face looked unfamiliar, not dramatic, not monstrous, just off. My eyes looked dull, unfocused, like I was still half asleep. There were faint red marks along my jawline and neck, too symmetrical to be scratches, too light to be bruises. I pressed my fingers to them. They were tender. I didn't remember getting them. When a woman came to escort me later, she glanced at my face for half a second longer than necessary. How do you feel today? She asked. Fine, I said automatically. She nodded, like that was the answer she'd expected. By the fourth night, the building felt smaller. Not physically, logically. I knew the halls were the same length, but the air felt heavier, closer. Sound didn't travel the way it should have. My footsteps seemed muted, swallowed by the floor before they could echo. I started to notice things I hadn't before. There were no clocks anywhere. Not in my room. Not in the halls. Not in the lobby. My phone had no signal. The call button by the bed still glowed red, steady and patient. That night, the sound came sooner. I was still awake when I heard movement above the ceiling, slow, deliberate shifts, like something crawling but taking its time. The panels creaked softly under the weight. I stared upward, heart pounding. The sound stopped directly over the camera above my bed. Then the mattress dipped, not beside me this time. On me, a gradual, careful pressure across my chest, like hands pressing down, not hard enough to hurt, just enough to let me know I wasn't imagining it. I couldn't see anything. The darkness felt thick, resistant, like it was holding its breath. I tried to speak. Nothing came out. I could move barely, but my body felt sluggish, unresponsive, like it had been turned down a few notches. Panic surged, sharp and overwhelming, and still I couldn't scream. The pressure lifted. The air shifted. Something moved away. When I finally gasped, it felt like surfacing from deep underwater. I didn't hit the call button. I didn't sleep. In the morning, I found dirt under my fingernails. Dark, fine grit packed into the creases, like I'd been clawing at something rough. I stood in the bathroom, staring at my hands, trying to force memory to surface. Nothing came. Breakfast was untouched when the woman arrived. "You didn't eat," she said mildly. "I wasn't hungry." She tilted her head, studying me. "Your body is adapting," she said. "That's expected." Adapting to what? I asked. She smiled. Observation. That was when I told her I wanted to leave. The smile didn't fade, but something behind it tightened. "Of course," she said. "After tonight." "No," I said. "Now." She didn't argue. She just nodded once. "I'll inform the team." She turned and walked away. I never saw her again. That evening, the lights didn't turn off at 10. They stayed on, bright, unforgiving. I lay on the bed anyway, exhausted beyond fear, staring up at the camera. At some point, despite everything, my eyes closed. When I woke up, the room was dark, and I wasn't alone. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it, its presence pressing into the space around me, distorting the air. The ceiling groaned softly above us. Something leaned close to my face. I smelled it then. Dry, stale, like dust that had never been disturbed. I squeezed my eyes shut. A sound came from directly above my ear. Not breathing. Listening. When I woke again, the lights were on. The bed sheets were twisted around my legs, not like I'd been fighting them. My throat burned. My voice, when I tried call out, was barely there. On the desk sat a new note. "Thank you for your cooperation." My reflection in the bathroom mirror made my stomach drop. There were fingerprints on my skin, not bruises, impressions, like something had held me for a long time. And just before the woman returned, before the door opened, I realized something else. The cameras weren't pointed at the bed anymore. They were pointed at me. They didn't answer when I started screaming. I don't remember deciding to scream. One moment I was staring at my reflection, fingers pressed into fading impressions on my skin, and the next the sound was tearing out of me, raw, hoarse, uncontrollable. The call button glowed red beside the bed. I hit it again and again until my finger went numb. Nothing. No voice. No reassurance. No calm explanation wrapped in clinical language. Just silence. That was when I realized the cameras had stopped blinking. I hadn't noticed before, but there had always been a faint, intermittent flicker, some indication of recording, of power, of attention. Now there was nothing. They weren't watching anymore. They were done. The door unlocked at noon, not with a click or a buzz, just a soft release, like something letting go. A man stood in the doorway. I hadn't seen him before. He wore the same neutral clothing as the others, gray slacks, white shirt, but he didn't smile. He didn't bother pretending to be comforting. "Come with me," he said. "Am I leaving?" I asked. He didn't answer. The hallway felt longer than before, stretching as we walked. The lights overhead hummed faintly, unevenly. I noticed doors along the corridor, dozens of them, each identical to mine. Some had names printed on placards. Some didn't. None of them made a sound. We stopped in front of a door at the end of the hall. Unlike the others, it was metal, thick, with no handle on my side. The man gestured for me to enter. Inside, the room was small and windowless. A single chair faced a wall of glass. On the other side, monitors glowed softly, not feeds of the rooms. Brain scans, heart rates, sleep cycles, and something else. A column labeled presence duration. I didn't understand it at first, until I saw my name. "Congratulations," the man said quietly. "You've exceeded expectations." "What is that?" I asked, pointing. "It's how long it stays," he said, "once you fall asleep." Cold spread through my chest. "What stays?" He finally looked at me then. "Don't pretend you haven't felt it. They explained it badly. Or maybe there was no good way to explain it at all. They told me that some people, very few, create a kind of opening when they sleep, not physically, cognitively, a vulnerability and awareness when consciousness disengages. Most people close it instinctively. Some never do. Those people are rare. Those people are valuable. What is it? I asked again. The thing that comes through. The man hesitated. An observer, he said. Like us, but older. I laughed. It came out wrong. Sharp, almost hysterical. You're letting something watch me sleep? No, he said. We're letting it watch with you. That was worse. They told me it had always been there. Not just in the building, not just in the ceiling, in the dark spaces behind my eyes when I slept, in the moments between dreams, in the part of me that never quite shut off. The study wasn't about sleep disorders. It was about compatibility. Most subjects wake up, the man said, or panic, or shut it out. And me? You let it stay? My stomach dropped. I didn't let anything. You didn't stop it, he corrected. That's rare. I thought of the missing time, the soreness, the fingerprints, the way my dreams had vanished. What does it want? I whispered. The man's expression tightened. To learn how to be here, he said, without being noticed. They offered me a choice. Finish the study, or leave. But leaving, they explained, wouldn't stop the process. It would just remove the monitoring, the safeguards. It's already familiar with you, the man said. It knows your patterns, your responses. My throat felt tight. What happens if I finish? He didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, we get better data. That night, they returned me to my room. The cameras were back on, but now I understood what they were watching for. Not movement, not fear, recognition. The lights went out. The sound in the ceiling began almost immediately. But this time, I didn't pretend it wasn't happening. I lay there, heart hammering, eyes open. The pressure came slowly, carefully. It rested on my chest again, closer to my face. And for the first time, I felt something else. Curiosity, not mine. Something leaned close. And I knew, with sick certainty, it wasn't studying my sleep anymore. It was studying me. They didn't wake me the next morning. At first, I thought I'd overslept. The room was dim, the light stuck somewhere between night and day. My body felt heavy, anchored to the mattress, like gravity had increased while I wasn't paying attention. When I tried to sit up, I realized I couldn't. Not fully. My arms responded, sluggish but functional. My legs felt distant, like they belonged to someone else. There was a faint pressure across my chest, not weight exactly, more like resistance, as if the air itself had thickened. The cameras were still on. I could feel them, not watching, waiting. The door opened without a sound. The man from the control room stepped inside, followed by the woman from the lobby. She didn't smile this time. "It's important you stay calm," she said. "I want to leave," I said. My voice came out weak, stretched thin. "You said I could leave." "You can," she replied, "after tonight." The words hit me wrong. "You said that before." She didn't deny it. The man stepped closer to the bed. I noticed that there were faint, dark smudges on the cuffs of his sleeves, like ash ground into fabric. "You were never meant to be a long-term participant," he said. "That wouldn't be ethical." "Then what am I?" I asked. They exchanged a look. "Proof," he said. "They finally told me the part they'd been circling since the beginning. Somnus wasn't studying sleep. Sleep was just a doorway. The human brain, they explained, was noisy when awake, too loud, too structured. Consciousness acted like insulation. But when we slept, especially during certain stages, that insulation thinned. Most minds sealed themselves shut. A few didn't. Those minds created overlap. What happens to it when I wake up?" I asked. The woman hesitated. "It doesn't," she said. The pressure on my chest shifted, subtle but unmistakable. They hadn't brought it here. They'd taught it where to wait. "It uses familiar shapes," the man said. "Familiar sensations. Pressure, weight, presence. Your brain fills and rests." I thought of the bed dipping, the fingerprints, the sound of something listening. "You're teaching it how to pass." I whispered. "Yes," he said, "how to stay unnoticed." My mouth felt dry. "And when it learns?" They didn't answer. They didn't need to. That night, they didn't turn the lights off. They faded them slowly, like easing something into water. I lay there, unable to move more than my head, watching the shadows deepen. The sound above me began immediately. No pretense now. No careful hiding. The ceiling groaned. The mattress dipped. Something pressed down, heavier than before, settling with familiarity. The pressure didn't scare me this time. That was the worst part. I felt it learning. How much weight my body could take. How my breath changed when it leaned closer. How my eyes tracked without seeing. Something brushed my cheek. Not skin. Not anything I had words for. Inside my head, images bloomed fragmented, intrusive. Hallways. Rooms. Beds identical to mine. People lying still beneath cameras. Faces slack with sleep. Dozens. Hundreds. All of them open. I tried to scream. The thing adjusted. And suddenly I understood. It wasn't watching me sleep. It was practicing. Practicing how to wear the stillness. Practicing how to wait. Practicing how to wake up inside someone else. When morning came, the pressure was gone. I could move again. The cameras were dark. The woman returned with my bag and an envelope. "Your compensation," she said. My hands shook as I took it. "Am I done?" I asked. She nodded. "Yes," she said. "You were very helpful." They walked me out without ceremony. No paperwork. No follow-up instructions. The building looked smaller in daylight, less threatening. Just concrete and glass and quiet. I stood in the parking lot for a long time before I could bring myself to get in my car. I drove home. I slept in my own bed that night. And something slept with me. I know now why the study paid so well. It wasn't hazard pay. It was hush money. Because once you've been opened, you don't close again. I wake up every night at exactly the same time, 3:17 a.m., with the sensation of being checked. Not touched, not watched, measured. Sometimes when I don't move, I can feel it settle. Learning, waiting. And I understand now why Somnus needed cameras. not to watch the subjects, but to document the moment when the subjects stop being alone. Because if you're hearing this, if you're lying in bed, half awake, aware of the weight of your mattress and the space around you, then you already know. It's not something that comes for you. It's something that waits for permission. And sooner or later, everyone falls asleep.